She won most talkative in high school, and she has been running her mouth ever since. Welcome to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast with your host, Lisa Fisher.
I know how to butter up a guest. I told Melissa here that talking to me is going to be like having a glass of gluten-free, grain-free wine and probably something that has no tannins or anything that would make you allergic, right? Or how sensitive are you when you drink alcohol?
I'm not. I'm actually a very expensive drunk, to be honest.
Are you now?
I am.
Just off the top, you got any recommendations you can share with us? Like, what do the healthy people drink?
Honestly, as far as calories go, champagne's really good. But I'm a big fan of dry farm wines because they really do a good job of sourcing healthy wines from around the world.
But now I've heard it's not so good.
Wine.
The dry farm.
Oh, how come?
So a friend of mine ordered, and they send you out like the starter pack.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, and she just said because they are organically grown, maybe we want some pesticides. Maybe that's what makes our wine taste good. But she said she got the dry farm wines, and it just wasn't that great. And she went back to the cheap hooch at the Costco or wherever she got it.
No, I get that. Yeah, I get the sample pack every month. I get 6 bottles of whatever they want to send me, and there's some times that I'm like, no, not that good. But honestly, probably out of the 6, I love 4. 1 I can give or take, and there's normally 1 that I'm just like, give that to the kids because they don't care.
How old are the kids there, Melissa?
Shoot, they're 25 and 26.
Oh, okay, I thought you were going to say 7 and 9.
That wouldn't stop me.
Right, I love the way you think. Okay, let's talk about your health journey. One of my followers on Instagram was the one who said, you've got to follow this girl, Lisa. I think you'd like her. You kind of speak the same language. So tell me about the language you speak with health and how you got here.
Oh, goodness. Lisa, I'm going to go very far back really fast.
We've got time.
Oh, good. I'm a victim of Agent Orange. My father did serve in Vietnam.
Wow.
And the thing that is so ironic about my own health journey is my husband, my father was exposed to Agent Orange while in Vietnam. And it is, that pesticide, herbicide from Monsanto that he got in his system, but just like any toxin, it just sat in his fat cells. And so no harm, no foul. And he decided to go into the helicopter pilot school in the Army and had to lose weight very rapidly. So he went on a crash diet and lost some fat. And that Agent Orange released into his bloodstream at the same time that I was conceived. So my sister was born in 1972, and she was just fine because my dad was fat, dumb, and happy. But then he decided to lose weight. And in 1974, when I was born, I had, severe birth defects from Agent Orange. And so they wanted to amputate my feet because I had what was called elephantitis of the forefeet. So the bones in my feet were huge. They were they were huge when I was born. So they, instantly whisked me away and stuffed this 8.5-pound baby in this little tiny incubator because I thought there would be a lot of problems, which my husband might argue there are, but that's another story.
Right.
Yeah. And so they wanted to amputate at the ankle because the bones in my feet just kept growing rapidly and they didn't know how to stop it. So the only way they knew to stop it was to cut them off where the growth was happening. But my parents were extremely tenacious and kept going from doctor to doctor, especially military doctor to doctor. They're not really worried about aesthetics. They just want to fix the problem. And found a doctor that said, I can try. He said, I can't guarantee anything. He says, but I can get in there and I can remove bone and I can break bone to stop the growth, but she will never walk or wear shoes because of the deformity in her feet. And so they're like, okay. And at 14 months, though, I had casts up to my thighs. And my sister was yelling to my mom that I was trying to climb the stairs. And so my mom screamed my name, and I actually stood up on my casts, and I walked all the way around the house to get to my mom. And that was my first step, was with these casts on at 14 months. So I could walk, but...
Just not you can walk. That's a sign of stubbornness. This is when stubbornness plays to our advantage. It helps you overcome the disability you already told you'd never do.
Right. That's kind of my whole life, is I feel like I've always been told you shouldn't or you can't do this. And in my mind, that's an instant watch me kind of mindset.
Right. Hold my beer. It's the hold my beer. Watch
absolutely.
this.
And my mom said from that point on, she really had a hard time holding me down. So all through, the doctor said to, not to let me run, not to let me hop, skip, or jump or anything because my feet could collapse. And so I was really held down as a child, very sedentary, and kind of played sports. I played right field in softball because
does that mean you don't do a lot? I don't know the difference. Okay, that's where I would sit. That'd be great.
Yeah, nobody hits the ball in right field.
Oh, okay.
And then to get my letterman's jacket in high school, bless my high school's heart, they allowed me to be the manager of the cross country team. So I literally just stood there and they gave me a letter in cross country because I was the manager. And so that was it as far as athletics or sports went. And we go back to, the stubbornness. As soon as I left the house and my mom wasn't watching me, I went to my first gym and just fell in love with the movement of exercise. I started taking group exercise classes and lifting a few weights here and there and just loved it. And so at that time, I was going to Arizona State University for a degree in dietetics and was learning about nutrition, exercising a lot, and that just kind of sparked inside me what you see today.
Now, the degree in dietetics, that's kind of a traditional Western 4-year academic diploma. And a lot of us, and I'm including myself into your esteemed group of people who are health coaches, do intermittent fasting, don't necessarily follow that paradigm because we see it's bought and paid for by pharma and by food manufacturers. So how were you able to settle that angst in your heart?
Okay, you are my sister from another mister. So I was going through school, and during that time I'd had my kids are 18 months apart. So I had 2 small kids and school was getting very difficult. But there was just something inside of me because at that time, the food pyramid, I believe, came out in 1990 or 92. And I was in college at that time and they were trying to teach me the food pyramid and it just did not sit well with me.
So you knew then, even though we were low fat, we were lied to, but that was 80s and 90s. We were low fat, low cholesterol, and we were telling people carbs. So you knew innately then that wasn't right?
Yeah, I just feel like it's common sense. When you look at that bottom of the pyramid, it's brown.
It is brown.
Where's all the color and the phytonutrients and stuff? And so I just, it really didn't sit that well with me. So the idea of dietetics at that time, it was easy for me to go, you know what? I was literally a semester away from graduating. And my husband and I were like, you're just going to be a stay-at-home mom anyway. My poor parents, they paid out-of-state tuition. But I just didn't ever see myself teaching what I was learning. And so I did let it go. And I continued to be self-taught, which I have for over 20 years. And then, finally decided to become a certified nutritionist instead. And it's funny, I have a lot of friends that are that are nutritionists as well. And they have the exact same story. They went to college to become a dietitian and pulled back because it just wasn't the direction that they wanted to go.
So a nutritionist, if we're going to use terminology here, it differs from a dietitian in that it's not a 4-year degree in an American or Western medicine type schooling. And it's more about bioindividuality, how you react, what foods speak to you. I always say, and someone taught me, love the foods that love you back. And so I know in my own journey as an intermittent faster and having a lot of autoimmune conditions that I have to decide what works for me may not work for you.
Yeah.
And I hear that all the time.
And I have one of my closest friends she was a Western medicine doctor, anesthesiologist, and she decided to go into functional medicine. And I kind of see those two things being the same, that you've got the, Western medicine doctor, the dietitian that are, educated in that realm. And then nutritionists who and that is sadly to say that term there is a broad spectrum when it comes to that. And I do understand some dietitians.
To which one? Functional medicine?
To being a nutritionist. Because every state has a different law and people will call themselves that. And so I do know that some dietitians have problems with that term, and I do empathize with that, but there are some very educated, whether even if they're just self-taught, because I do believe that someone who has spent 10, 20 years educating themselves knows a lot more than somebody who's been in school for 6 months, you know?
Right. I totally agree. What do your feet look like now? What do your extremities and things that were part of the Agent Orange, how did they repair?
Horribly.
Wow.
But, you know, at least I will tell you that just in the last year, I have embraced, I'm 47, so it took me 46 years to embrace
Well, you
them.
look 27, but go ahead.
Bless you. And so I've just started wearing open-toed shoes for the first time, and I've started
Really?
going to beaches without keeping my shoes on or hiding my feet in the sand, because I'll be honest with you, because I am pretty physically fit, I do appreciate when people look at me, they look down at my feet, and you can see the shock, and then they look back at my physique, and I'm like, yes, you can too.
Then they look at you and they're like, she's a badass, and I'm not going to say anything to her, and I'm just going to keep walking on the beach. I saw your delts and your triceps in a picture on when I was getting your information from your website. Yeah, you are cut, sister. Well, was there ever a time that Melissa was fluffy and fat? Because you're thin and fit now.
And no, I was never overweight, but then again, the doctors told my parents, which my parents relayed to me, I can't be. So that is a huge accountability factor for me. My feet can't handle the weight. And so, you know, whether or not I was going to be, you know, in the nutrition or the fitness realm, I needed to always keep my weight down because my feet couldn't handle any extra weight, especially because I became a group exercise instructor and a master trainer, and I was jumping around, and my poor mom scared her to death because they said that if I did any kind of activity, I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 40. So she kept waiting for the day that my feet would say, I can't do this anymore. And I would end up in a wheelchair, but 47 and I'm still going strong.
Well, what about pregnancy? There was weight gain there. How did you manage?
Yeah, laziness.
Good. I think you should. But did your feet bother you?
Not that I can, okay, so I've been told I have a really high tolerance of pain. So they might have, and I'm just really used to that feeling. To be honest, I don't recall any specific pain. The hardest, I'll tell you, the time that I remember my feet hurting the worst was when shoes that were very popular, I don't know if you remember them, called Nike Shox.
Well, yes.
They were super popular, and all of the other master trainers were wearing them, and I would stuff my fat little feet in those, and oh my gosh, my feet hurt. And I've got the weirdest bumps and bunions and stuff on my feet now because of them. But that's the only time that I can really recall that they were just excruciating. It was bad.
Have you ever seen, I think PBS did it years ago, it was the documentary on the Chinese foot binding, that it's a sign of wealth and prestige in the East, the Far East in China, for women to have small feet. And a few women are tall there, not many. So they would bind the feet to make them small. And that's probably what you'd have done. And the discomfort when you'd put your foot in a shoe that wasn't the best fit for you.
Yeah, 100%.
So, okay, so let's talk about so you started looking at the food pyramid and you were thinking, like, how did you know that wasn't good? Because we were told that the whole grains are good for us. We didn't know that was a sugar and cancer diet and type 2 diabetes diet with that many whole grains.
Yeah, I think if you I was raised Southern, and so it was always, meat and potatoes was what we ate every single day. And
something was fried too, probably.
Yeah, of course.
I'm in the South, sister, I know.
And I guess it's innate in me, but I've always, and I still to this day, I think, your plate should just be covered in vegetables. And
good.
When I looked at that food pyramid and I saw that they were prioritizing the grains over, the fruits and especially the vegetables, I just thought to myself, I can't understand this being the healthiest thing that I've ever seen. And there was not a lot of talk of, what can happen to long-term use of eating these grains. But my mother-in-law was trying to lose weight. And I remember specifically her she would get these fat-free loaves of French bread from, I think it was Rosars in Washington State. And that's what she would eat for lunch because it was low calorie and there was no fat. And she didn't look very healthy.
And puffy, inflammation. We know
Grumpy.
what wheat does to your digestive system, your memory, your brain. I mean, all the things about it were just very challenging for her to keep a slim self.
Yeah,
I
and
know
I mean, it
these
was all
things.
about just calories, back then. There was no thought of, micronutrients whatsoever. It was just 100% how many calories she got in the day. And it was just so void of nutrition. And anybody with common sense, I would think, I'm calling my mother-in-law out, would look at that and go,
Well,
this
it
just
was
can't
her-
be healthy.
No, it was the culture. Everything was based on how many calories something had or how many fat grams. And I still hear
today.
that. I remember seeing women in the 90s that went on low-fat diets. Yeah, they lost weight, but their skin had huge lines in them. Their faces were dry because fat gives us the emollient. That's why my hair's shiny and my skin is bright. It's because I eat pork lard and whatever. I'm pointing to my kitchen, like whatever butter. I have real butter at lunch or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But I remember this one lady she was slim, but she looked 10 or 15 years older because the way her skin looked, her hands looked and everything, because what fat provides. So what are some things you think are important for our diets every day, no matter, kind of across the board as much as we can? There's some person's going to say, I can't eat that. And I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about the rest of us. What do you recommend for everybody?
I recommend all vegetables. So I have people come to me and say, well, what about potatoes? Or what about corn? And I tell them that's, in my opinion, the least of your worries at that point. Because most people are coming from such a refined and processed diet that let's just get rid of the foods that are refined and processed and just go back to whole foods. And so I always start off people by just understanding that all vegetables are okay. And when you really start to get picky, we have, the nightshades, and we do have, potatoes. And we have to be careful with, corn not being GMO and all that stuff. So you really can get into that. But just to stair step people into a healthier lifestyle, I try not to get them too worried about being picky about their vegetables. Let's just have you get a lot of vegetables in your diet. Okay. So that's number one. Number two, I do think fruit. So I have a love-hate relationship with fruit. I think berries are wonderful. People have to remember that coconut and avocados are technically fruits. So when you eat a coconut or an avocado, you're having fruit. But I do believe that we tend to overdo fruit. And if I can tell you a story real quick of my daughter, who's, like I said, now 25 and going to school to be a nutritionist. But she, during her college years, decided to be a vegan, against my better judgment. And we went to get our blood tests done together. And she was so excited to show me how her vegan diet was so much healthier than my MAID diet, which is, a higher fat, lower carbohydrate diet. And we got our triglycerides tested. And the nurse thought the machine was broken with my daughter because it came in almost at 600. Now, remember, anything over 125 is of concern. And so she redid the test and it came back again. And it's because my daughter, as a vegan, was eating a ton of fruit. And it was raising her triglycerides a lot.
Is that right? So fruit would raise that?
Absolutely. And so at that point, she decided to, very, very slowly, she did it for ethical reasons, bless her heart. She's got a big heart, but to get back to eating a more healthy diet.
Does she close her eyes now when she eats the burger?
Lisa,
don't tell me what it is.
Yeah, the funniest thing is she won't eat things like a bowl of shrimp, because to her that's a whole lot of lives that have died instead of just
one cow.
Yeah,
and really the cow. I mean, there are a lot of things the cow does. So he gives milk. Yes. I guess she does. She's alive then. Yeah. Because I'm in health coaching school at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and just this weekend I was watching my some of the lectures, and one of the lecturers said that the husband had the beginnings of coronary heart disease. So they went completely vegan, did all the things, and went back for their testing. And she said it was the worst. They had the worst blood lab work that they had seen in 20 years. And that's when she said I said that earlier about bioindividuality. It works for a whole lot of people, But then there were 2 lectures just in this weekend that told us a similar story, that they tried it. So it works for a whole lot of people, but it may not work for you, but it might. Right. And if it does, great. But if it doesn't, jump ship.
It's possible, but a lot of people will come to me wanting to incorporate the MAID diet, the diet that I created, but they want to do it vegan. And so they'll come to me and they'll say, what kind of protein should I eat? And I'm like, that's your job. If you're going to commit to this kind of lifestyle, you need to educate yourself. You cannot come into something like that blindly. You're going to have serious nutrient deficiencies. I have friends that were vegan for 2.5 years and just pulled away because their health was deteriorating. And there are no 2 people on this planet that I know studied veganism more than them. They were perfect at it. And still after 2.5 years, they had to go back to eating meat because they were just really starting to have a lot of gut issues, not having meat in their diet.
You need to follow Dr. Stephanie Rimka, Rimka. I interviewed her a few months ago. She's a chiropractor in Atlanta who was a vegan, and at age, I think she was saying, she was trying to get pregnant, and on the vegan diet, she had facial hair, cystic acne, and she said because so many people in a vegan diet have a lot of soy and grains, bread products. And she pushed herself into PCOS, got off the vegan diet, has liver every day, has meats every day, and she's the size of this pin and fit and healthy, and her brain works fine. So that was the first person that really showed me the before and after. But the Stephanie Rimka she's something. I mean, she doesn't mind telling it like it is, and I just like people that tell the truth and can
absolutely
help us find whatever works for us. So tell me about your self-made diet and how you found it and what is it?
Well, I unarguably believe, and I think most people would agree, that the Mediterranean diet is, pretty much the healthiest diet for us humans, being in the blue zone and everything. And the MAID diet is very similar to the Mediterranean, except that in all my years of helping people, most people are coming into this, I want to get healthier, out of a very standard American diet where they have had way too many carbohydrates in their diet, causing all of these hormonal imbalances. And so although I feel like the Mediterranean is a healthy diet, it's a healthy diet for a healthy person. The MAID diet does pull back on carbohydrates a little bit more than the Mediterranean to help them become insulin sensitive again and to fix that metabolic flexibility so that their body can go back to burning fat just as easily as it does carbs, because they're coming to me confused. Their bodies just are so out of whack. And so by lowering those carbohydrates for, a long length of time, just kind of resets everything. And then if they feel once they're just, at their optimal, they want to go back to having a little more carbohydrates. And I'll never be a gluten, grain, dairy lover. I just never will be. I've seen too many life changes for people that have cut it out or minimize it, but they can add more carbohydrates in once their body has been reset back to being optimal. And then the Mediterranean diet is great. But that's what the MAID diet was for, is because obviously we have to hold protein at a certain level for most of us. There's still a little controversy on protein. Dr. Longo says lower, and then you've got people that say a pound, a gram per pound. I do believe, pretty much in between there. I always say between 25 and 35% of your calories coming from protein. And then what you've got left is fat and carbs. And so some people will do, I have a really good friend, she's I can't cuss, she's a brick crap house.
Yes,
and
yes.
You know what I'm talking about. And she's I don't want to say she's
bow chicka bow bow.
Oh, she's gorgeous. And she's in that kind of competitive mindset where fat will make you fat. And so she limits her fat a little bit. But she is very strongly believes in, calories in, calories out. So you have to kind of choose. And when you look at carbohydrates, they're great for energy. They give you energy. But then you look at fat can give you energy, but it's also, it helps cushion your arteries. Every single cell in our body is surrounded by fat. So fat has such a deeper nutritional value than carbohydrates do, and you shouldn't have a lot of both. So I would rather, and anybody that I work with, I would rather them have higher fat and a lower carbohydrate with that medium amount of protein, which is stands for moderate protein, adequate fat, decreased carbs, 8-hour window.
Gotcha. Okay, let me ask you this. How's it been all your life looking like Sandra Bullock? Okay, I'm sorry. That's only for people watching this on YouTube. You've got to watch this because you're Sandra Bullock.
Actually, don't watch this because Melissa has no makeup on. She's
Melissa is
all
gorgeous. Oh, Sandra Bullock doesn't wear a lot of makeup.
Well,
so
good.
do you get that everywhere you go?
I do. I had a drunk gentleman once just wouldn't believe that I wasn't her, so he got a fake autograph.
My son-in-law looks like Drake, the rapper. And so it is so fun for us to go places and
sure.
people say, "No, are you Drake?" But my son-in-law is only like 5'9". I think Drake's taller, but they have the same racial blend, everything about him, the same beard.
That's awesome.
So I think it's so funny. Yeah.
Well,
I get it all the time with Pamela Anderson. No, I mean, I can't even think of anybody. One of the Real Housewives. No, I'm a brunette. Clearly not. Okay, let's talk about intermittent fasting then. That's kind of my mantra, and it's healed so many things a part of me. I have so many autoimmune conditions that are the best doctors have ever seen. And I would attribute that to digesting in a shorter window. So I do about a 5-hour window, 4 to 5 hours, because that's what fits me.
Sure.
Some days I do a 1-hour window, and if we're busy, I might have an 8-hour window because of metabolic flexibility. I can go back and forth, and my body actually craves that. It's just listening to your body, learning to listen to your body. But how did you get on the intermittent fasting train?
By accident, to be honest. So I've been an intermittent faster now for 25 years. I think 25 years.
That was before anybody. Before it was cool.
Yeah, I'm probably the first person on the planet to intermittently fast. I'm just kidding.
Well, they thought you were mentally ill.
Oh,
or you had an eating disorder. They thought you had an eating disorder.
I got that, but I also hid it. So being a fitness professional, all of the fitness magazines, you eat first thing in the morning to rev your metabolism.
And every 3 hours.
5 to 6 meals a day. And so that's what I was doing. And I had a business mentor because I used to film fitness videos. And she said, "You are the only person that comes camera ready." She says, "Everybody else has to diet before they are ready to film." And she says, "What do you do differently?" And I kept going, I don't know. I think we all eat healthy. And I was racking my brain, and I finally
You didn't know it had a term, right?
No,
it was just the way Melissa ate.
Yeah. I'm like, "I don't eat breakfast." And she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's it. You don't eat breakfast?" And I'm like, "No."
Why didn't you?
It.
Why didn't you though?
I
didn't like it?
Nope. I taught group exercise in the morning, and I'll challenge anybody on energy during a workout. I just was so uncomfortable with anything in my stomach. I could jump higher. I could move faster.
Absolutely.
I could, propel my voice better without a lump in my stomach sometimes I would work out, 2 hours, very, very difficult 2 hours, completely fasted.
Let's talk about, people don't think about the work. That's why my doctors have said I have this rare swallowing disorder. He's an advanced clinician, stayed away. He said it's because the work digestion does. So if you're busy digesting, you've got saliva that has enzymes, you're breaking down the foods, your esophagus is working, peristalsis, your lower esophageal sphincter is opening, closing. It makes working out harder because you are working out.
Yes.
Your body is working out on your behalf, but we were all told you have to have a banana with peanut butter before you work out, before you run, or an apple. So I did that. And the other thing food does, so sleepy. The minute I eat, I want to go night-night, suck my thumb. Somebody read me Goodnight Moon. I'm done.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's so much better. The magic though, I heard Dr. Fung, who I call the father of intermittent fasting. He's a nephrologist and has done so much scientific research, and it's profound. A little on the nerdy side, but I think it's cute. I just love everything about him.
It's cute.
But I heard him last week say something that I'm an intermittent fasting health coach, so I've always told people you fire ketones for fuel and all this. He said, well, actually, the reason you have so much energy during the fasted state is your adrenals are working and producing adrenaline, the thing that makes you run, the thing that makes you fire. So that's why you're the first person ever to admit it. You really felt better in the morning exercising in the fasted state. I need everybody listening right now to take a deep breath because they're either breathing in a paper bag or they're calling their husband going, this lady's crazy. No, it's both ladies. We are telling the truth, y'all. But don't you feel better in the fasted state, even working out?
Yes. And it's no different than sleeping. You know, we as intermittent fasters usually preach not to eat for several hours before you go to bed because your body's either in a digestive or a rest and a repair state. And so if you're eating right before you go to bed, your body cannot rest and repair. If you're exercising, you
that's
can't
good. Yeah.
put all of that energy into exercise because digestion takes a lot of work.
So I'm saying it's a workout.
Yeah,
it is a workout for your GI tract and all the magic that happens there. Well, then let's talk about the important GI tract and how it works right into gut health. Okay. What are your basic tenets of gut health that you love?
Well, again, I do believe that we need to give our stomachs a rest, which is one of the reasons why I'm just not a fan of the 5 to 6 small meals a day.
Okay. Now, do your fellow workout gurus think that, because here's the deal, a lot of them are peddling a product. They have a proprietary interest. So they really want you to drink because they have a BCAA drink that you get that you sign up under them. So how does that communication go between you and fellow fitness enthusiasts?
Well, they're coming around. They're definitely coming around. Good. I do believe, there's the post-workout, there's the snack bars, all of this stuff in the breakfast.
And it's all packaged crap, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Very difficult to find anything in a package that's good for you.
That's right.
Very difficult. And so they are coming around because it literally just makes sense because it takes, bare minimum 8 hours for you to digest a meal. So why on earth do you think after 2 hours of eating that you're starving again? And that is a trigger word for me because it bothers me when people will tell me after eating lunch 2 hours later, I'm starving, I need something to eat. And I'm like, would you please think of that word before you use it, of who's really starving versus you who just had a meal 2 hours ago? You're fine.
So, but what do you think that is? Do you think that's the brain's dependence on glucose going up and down? And they really do, because we used to think before we did intermittent fasting that hunger was an emergency. It's not.
No.
Hunger is just a time to tell your body to hush because you'll come back in an hour and you're going to eat. So do you think those people truly are very, very hungry, Melissa, or they overuse the term?
Oh, absolutely overuse the term. Number one, boredom. And number two, I just read a study this morning. I wish I could cite it for you. But it's not really the fact of the food that will raise your insulin. It's the lowering of the insulin, that crash. It was a study on low carb and high carb diets and appetite. And they were showing that people that are on a low carbohydrate diet that don't have that huge high and low versus the higher carbohydrate that have a huge spike. The hunger, when it starts to go down, is enormously different by someone that didn't allow that huge spike to happen versus someone who does. So your body goes into a panic mode because it's not metabolically flexible. It doesn't know how to burn either fat that you've eaten or fat on your body because it is so dependent on the glucose that you eat that it panics, and it will completely distract you. That's why you get brain fog. That's why you can't concentrate. That's why there's these really harsh cravings, is because your body's panicking and telling you, I need sugar right now because I don't know how to function without it.
Now, I'm from the purest school of intermittent fasting, of the clean fast. So that means when I open, I do not ingest anything. I don't care if it's 0 calories or it doesn't matter. I understand pituitary sees it as food and has to release insulin to unlock the cell, to usher glucose to the cells. So in the morning, do you drink coffee, water, unsweetened tea?
Yes, girl has to have her black coffee. And I also have a pre-workout that I have But the pre-workout that I use, has, green tea in it and quercetin and a lot of really good quality ingredients that I think benefit my workout versus not having it and being, a cleaner, pure fast. But that's it. There's, I get asked literally probably 20 times a day, at least 20 to 50 times, does the creamer break my fast? Does my, post-recover break my fast?
And I say yes to all those. I say yes to all of them.
And it's as simple as I might be a little bit curt with them because they're like, I just can't drink my coffee black. And I'm like, well, why are you drinking coffee? If you don't like the taste of coffee, don't drink it. Don't put a bunch of crap in it so that you like the taste of it. Find something else.
That's a real good reason, because I get that a lot. I'm just not a coffee drinker, so it's never crossed my mind. In fact, it tastes like coffee, so I think it's nasty. There's nothing about it. But that's something I deal with. It's funny. The people I coach, the men and women are so different. And the women, we have to coddle. The women I have, they start with a 16-hour window, and then the next week they go to a 17-hour window and 18. And then they're like shaking because they don't have their candy coffee. The men I coach will go, I'm down to 2 hours eating. What you got? And they are, I'm like, the drive and ambition. And I'm not making blanket statements, please. No emails, no nothing. I'm telling you what I'm discovering with the people, and it may be the age groups I have. But do you see that in kind of the drive and ambition of men and women, that men are like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And it's funny because it was my husband who kind of got me into the healthy eating in the first place, because we're high school sweethearts. We've been together over 30 years. But
is that right?
Yes. In high school, I would sit and play my Nintendo. Remember, I had to sit as a child. So I'd play my Nintendo, eat my bag of Doritos, and drink my Coca-Cola. And he was just naturally healthy. It's not because he wanted he wouldn't touch margarine. He's like, I'm not touching that fake stuff.
He knew better.
He did. And so he I always give him credit. And now it's to his demise, because he'll buy conventional beef, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Stop that. You're like, get that cow out of this house.
Totally. And he's like, oh, I created a monster.
Right.
But yeah, he and with him and I, if ever I want to do a 3-day fast or anything, an extended fast, I just look at him like, will you do it with me? He's like, absolutely. And he doesn't complain.
Isn't that great?
Yeah. He's so easygoing when it comes to diet and eating. And
well, that's one thing I notice with my clients. Their spouses get on board when they see it's really easy.
Yeah.
And nobody's starving themselves, that the wife is eating what she wants to eat, just in a shorter window. And then they both go to shorter windows. And one of them, even, I had her call the other day, and they'd driven to the beach, and from Arkansas, it's about 10 hours. She said she would have the Doritos. She would eat the whole time. She said she was drinking her unsweet tea and her water. And she said, I had to pee a lot. We stopped a lot because I had to pee. But she said, it's amazing what you don't have to eat. The other thing I think I'm seeing too, Melissa, about food, if we talk about food, because I'm learning, besides big pharma, the food industry is subsidized by our government. Yeah. And I don't watch TV, but because I got mad before COVID and I haven't turned it on since. But I can't. My mental, and I say that kind of lighthearted, but my mental health can't take it, because I'm an empath, and I really care about people and stuff. So it's just too much. Yeah. But people tell me all the times about the food commercials they see. Well, I don't see them, so I don't know. But they really have convinced us that this package of 100-calorie brownies is fine, because it's the same as 100-calorie, avocado, which makes me want to fall off my chair and kick. So how do we get across to people that if you buy it in the middle of the store, except for canned goods, I think the canned goods I get, vegetables are fine if you can't get fresh.
Sure.
But how can we convince people that the foods we get in the middle of the store that have any ingredients on the back are going to kill you? That's what you're thinking too, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. You say you're an empath, but I want you to know that I own the title of most empathetic person on the planet. So you can be number 2.
Okay. Because it's hard. It's hard being this.
I can't. I mean, I've had to stop going to the Texas State Fair because my heart breaks because of how we fry everything at the Texas State Fair.
Okay, you're taking it a bit far. Fried foods are involved. I'm good.
fried everything, fried
Yeah,
beer.
fried everything, right.
But even going to the grocery store and seeing people that could use, a nutritional intervention and seeing
All
what's
the time.
in their cart.
All the time.
Literally chokes me up.
I totally agree. I'm what you're throwing down, I'm picking it up.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And so that's why I've dedicated, especially my Instagram account, to educating people on simple things from, hormones to gut health, to intermittent fasting, to whole foods, to, not believing everything that you hear from bro science. That's the big one. Bro science is a very hard thing to debunk.
And what's it called? What's the term?
Bro science. It's really people that are in that are in the gyms, like these huge muscle-bound men and these gorgeous, I don't, not just fitness competitors, but just that beautiful physique. They will tell you, to eat low fat and to have chicken and broccoli and eat 6 meals a day.
I know.
And these people are believing it because they look so good, but there's just so much underlying health issues that come from that long term. And, they see that short-term person, working to compete, and they look fantastic, and they think that they can fit that way of eating into their normal lifestyle. And so debunking that what you see these amazing humans doing is not a lifestyle. They have an on season and an off season. So I'm trying really hard to remind people that, you got to go back, a few hundred years and look at those people, not what you see in the fitness magazines and on, your fitness influencer on social media telling you, that it's all about calories. Just use MyFitnessPal, count your calories, be in a deficit, and you'll be healthy.
I wish the math was so easy.
Oh, absolutely.
Then we would have solved this. That should make people realize that it doesn't work, because we can't say we haven't made the attempts. And as I've always said, Dr. Fung says, there's no reunion show of The Biggest Loser.
Right, it's true.
Because they've messed up their ghrelin and leptin and YY peptide. And all the things that determine your metabolic rate and your hunger. Well, true hunger is a powerful thing. So the person that tells you they're starving, they're really not starving. But true hunger is a powerful thing. And we know that when you lower those calories, and you downregulate your metabolism, and when you have, everybody listen to me, lower metabolism means hungrier person. And until you realize that every time you mess with it, you're bringing it down a notch, and a notch. Now you can heal it through intermittent fasting. Yeah. But it takes a minute.
It does. And hunger's transient. It's not, people think, oh my gosh, I got the sensation of hunger. I'm going to be hungry until I eat again. And if they would just look past the 20 minutes of your body saying, I'm a little
Melissa,
blood sugar.
I don't think it lasts 20 minutes. I think it's about 3 to 5. I have timed it going, I totally forgot about it once I did something else. Yeah. Yes. 100%. It's amazing. Yeah. But that's what, again, the marketing companies with these food manufacturers, we don't want people to be hangry. You have to have a Snickers bar. Yes. Because we don't want you to be hungry. But true hunger really isn't that big of a deal. Okay, let's talk about glucose now. So I tried the continuous glucose monitor. I had the 2-week data, and very interesting. And and it was showing me what my body was doing. I saw a couple of spikes in there that I was real worried, and I called my original endocrinologist, is 81 years old, so he's kind of old school in the way he thinks. Yeah. And he diagnosed my thyroid disease and some other endocrine issues I have. So I texted him the other day and said, okay, I'm about to jump off the ledge. Am I okay? And he said, actually, you're normal, because I did have ice cream after lunch the other day with my granddaughter. He said, your glucose went up. He goes, but it came back down. So insulin was doing its job. I thought because it spiked, girl, it was like 160 something. And I'm usually, down there at 100. Yeah. But he said he said it came down immediately. I mean, it went up and came down immediately. He said, so we're not worried. So what are your thoughts? You think a CGM is a good thing? Have you tried one?
I do. Yeah, actually, my girlfriend, that's the functional medicine doctor, gave me like a 6-month prescription to it. And so I wore it for the longest time and had so much fun with it. And
what did you find out that was telling to you? Anything?
Well, yeah. I thought you were going to tell me that your reading was higher in the morning because
it was.
A lot of people, panic
explain
about that.
Explain that, because that you think, well, I flunked because I haven't eaten, because at that point by 6 a.m. I haven't eaten for 12 hours, and the next few hours, Melissa, it would kind of go up to 110 or 115, and then come back down.
That's cortisol. Your body releases cortisol in the morning to help wake you up and get you going.
Oh,
and
so cortisol
raises.
Oh, wow. Had no idea.
Yeah. So that should happen. If it doesn't happen, then you might have, cortisol issues. So you actually seeing that spike in the morning. And also when you exercise, it will spike for the same reason. You've got adrenaline and cortisol being released. And so it raises your blood glucose too. That's the way the body's supposed to work. But when you eat a meal, like when you have your snack of Snickers and it just shoots through the roof, that's not normal. Normal food should not cause this huge spike. Even the cortisol doesn't cause a huge spike. It just, you'll see a blip, but nothing dramatic. You never should see something dramatic unless you're running from, the bear. You might see a dramatic spike because your body is just pushing the glucose release.
I heard Dr. Hyman or Dr. Weil, somebody the other day say that we've always said we like 100 is average glucose, 80 to 100. He said, and A1C, we say 5.8. He said, but that's the conglomerate average. He goes, we don't. Functional medicine doctors don't. That's too high.
It is.
He said, we'd like to see your A1C under 5. And he said, your blood glucose for longevity.
Yes.
Reduction of dementia, type 2 diabetes, cancer, coronary heart disease. He said, we'd really like to see that blood glucose 90-ish. So what are you saying is the best way to bring that down? More fat?
Well, it just less. So crap. you want your carbohydrates and your fiber to be like even keel. So if you're eating something that's, got carbohydrates in it, it better have a ton of fiber as well, because that really helps balance that spike.
Like what would have that? A sweet potato?
Vegetables.
Vegetables, okay.
And Lisa, I'll tell you, so many people will tell me, I can't, they'll say, you don't have any carbs. I'm like, I eat a ton of vegetables. And they're like, vegetables aren't a carb. And I'm like, oh,
yes, they
are. Yes, they are. So, people label carbohydrates as the bottom of that pyramid. The pastas, the breads, the rice, that is a carbohydrate to them. Berries and vegetables are not a carbohydrate, which is a problem, because when I'm telling them to have, say for instance, just 15% of their calories as carbs, to them, that's like a piece of bread, but they don't realize how much fruit and how much vegetable you can have. I have them with every single meal, and I have the rainbow of color, and I'm very satiated and I'm very full from it. And I know I'm taking very good care of myself, but they don't see fruits and vegetables as a carbohydrate. And to go back to you're talking about the difference between, being normal, the levels.
The glucose.
Something for people to think about. When you wake up in the morning, you have about a teaspoon of glucose in your bloodstream. That's a normal person. A diabetic has a teaspoon and a half. So it's that little of a difference that causes you from being normal to being diabetic. And then here we sit, and we'll sit down and have this huge pancake breakfast, which has so much sugar that you're pouring into the bloodstream. It's no wonder that the body goes into shock, and so much insulin is released, and then we become resistant to it. And your body's just like, I don't hear the insulin signal, and you keep releasing more. And insulin, for lack of a better term, rusts your inside. It's just, we were never designed to have so much going through our system. Same with sugar, but insulin as well. And you'll have athletes tell you, well, I burn off the sugar. You might burn off the sugar, but you don't burn off the insulin. You can't burn off the insulin.
There's a difference. So people think if their blood glucose is 100, they'll ask me what their insulin is. I go, you have to have that checked. I don't know. Like, I can't look at you and decide, but
they think it's the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. So they think it's the same thing. So insulin's role, if we remember, is to usher the glucose to the cells. Mm-hmm. So you have to have it to live, but it's a fat storing hormone. Mm-hmm. It's not our friend, but it's our friend. You can't sit with us at lunch is what I want to say to it, but I have to have it to get through lunch, right?
Yeah.
So then how could you measure, what is the way to measure insulin? Just through a blood test that your doctor runs?
Yeah, you can get the finger pricking for your glucose. And I want to say I saw a chart that kind of roughly told you about how much insulin is, excreted on a healthy individual. But if you're not, then yeah, I would definitely have that test run. And there's so many places now that you can even
walk
do.
In.
I'm trying to think. Grassroots. I think they do. Grassroots.org is an amazing nonprofit organization that does the finger prick, and you just drop a piece of blood on a piece and you mail it in, and they do so many great tests. And you don't have to leave your home. And especially in today's day and age, a lot of people would be more comfortable with that. And, they have, I'm pretty sure they'd be, of course, your A1C, but thyroid, everything. I mean,
Good. I love hearing that. Because that's a problem. I think people kind of do a push and pull with their healthcare provider who says, no, you're fine. We don't need to order anything.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying, no, you don't look fine, but I need an outlet. So that's a really good way to put that. So let's talk about then gut health. We know fiber is something important, getting it from vegetables. Do you replenish through cultured and fermented yummies and drink the kombucha and all the things?
Yeah, definitely. Pre and probiotics. And I always highly encourage to get that through whole food. But most people do need a good quality probiotic that will help heal the gut, especially if they have leaky gut. Probiotics are really good. We're helping tighten those chains, which is so important because there's so many things getting into our bloodstream that were never meant to. And so, if you have any kind of dysbiosis, I think a probiotic is a really good thing to have.
And most people do.
Yes, they do, for at least 3 months. And then hopefully you can, continue that path with probiotic foods, but definitely have that variety in your diet.
So the prebiotics, is that those green bananas and chicory and stuff like that?
Yeah, and asparagus, people that never think, but asparagus is, I'm a big fan of asparagus. So, getting that a couple times a week is going to really help feed the probiotic.
Do you ever do the food sensitivity testing?
I used to all the time, and I actually quit because we change. I mean, they're expensive and they change.
Yeah, very.
By the time you're like, you get your results back and you start to change your diet, something might change. There's a product called Food Marble that I think is a great product. Johns Hopkins Hospital uses it, especially to help people diagnosed with SIBO. And it's one of those little, it's like this big, and you just breathe into it, and it measures hydrogen and methane. You don't get a methane reading, you only get a hydrogen reading, but it really helps you see if you have a sensitivity to a food. And they even have like little inulin, sorbitol, gluten, and one other one, lactose, that you can, it's a powder, and you drink it, and then you can measure your hydrogen levels for 3 hours afterwards to see.
That's amazing.
And it really helps people see if they have any kind of sensitivity to foods.
And what's the word again? Food?
Marble.
Oh, like marble. All right, I'm writing it down, and I'm putting that in the show notes along with grassroots.org, everything about you, putting all that in the show notes. My functional medicine doctor here in Arkansas, her big complaint with those food sensitivity tests is with a leaky gut, you might have higher positive rates. And she said, not necessarily accurate. It's because it's all leaking out of your gut. And she says, her favorite thing to do is a food elimination diet. And then reintroduce it and then try it that way. Have you done the food elimination diet? Like, what are your big no-nos? Yeah,
obviously, I mean, people have the biggest, reactions to soy, dairy, and gluten. And you have to do one at a time. You can't do all three. And it's really better to go longer than 30 days, but 30 days will give you a good idea of whether or not, your body, because some people will cut out gluten and it's really hard to cut it out because it's hidden. I read somewhere that even foods in the grocery store that say gluten-free, 60% of them still have gluten in them. So it's very hard. If you're celiac, I feel so sorry for celiacs.
Right, for those people, that's a small percentage.
Yes.
But if we go back to what God grows, we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, if it's in the produce aisle, if it's the meats. But
Yeah.
if it's packaged for a binder, I can promise you that there's some type of gluten
Agreed.
in that product. I heard Dr. William Davis, the wheat belly guy,
Yeah.
spoke to our Institute of Integrative Nutrition, and he says he really doesn't even love the gluten-free alternatives because of what it does then to blood glucose, if we're talking about blood glucose. So do you do any, please tell me you have a piece of birthday cake once a year. I will feel better. I will sleep better tonight.
Yes, I believe I have an iron gut, just like I could drink alcohol and drink anyone under the table. I also literally the only thing that sometimes I will, my stomach will descend and I look pregnant is if I eat a lot of almonds. Almonds specifically.
Okay. Mine are onions, anything in the alum. Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Allium, whatever that family is. So I have everything else. Iron gut, I'm tough.
Yeah.
But I have a little of that and I go, well, and plus I may too, but don't tell anybody. Y'all, anybody listening, do not tell anybody that because I don't do that. Okay, well, you're fabulous. We've got to wrap things up because you have probably a whip to crack to get somebody to do 1,000 push-ups. So,
You bet.
But I've got all the information in show notes. It's The Made Diet by Melissa McAllister. Thanks for listening to the Lisa Fisher Said podcast. Be sure to hit subscribe and download all the episodes and leave a review, won't you? The Lisa Fisher Said podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.